Let's jump right into this explainer. We all know that bringing a new product to market is a super complex journey. But have you ever wondered why so many genuinely great ideas just completely fail? Well, a lot of the time, companies don't stumble because they have a bad concept. They stumble because of how their internal teams are structured. So today, we're unpacking a brilliant research synthesis that completely reimagines how product teams should collaborate. Get this. Startling research actually shows that the failure rate for industrial products reaches a staggering 30%. That is literally almost 1 in 3 products just completely tanking. It's a massive loss of capital and human potential. And when researchers dug into it, they discovered the main culprit. It usually comes down to internal miscommunication and totally broken development processes.
So, to figure out how to beat those odds, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at why new products fail. Second, the 3 pillars of development. Third, the danger of silos. Fourth, the 7 integrated phases. And finally, how this scales from spoons to airplanes.
All right, part 1, why new products fail, and the fragmented approach. The harsh reality is that a product's life cycle relies on different departments that historically operate in total isolation from one another. It's like you have these different teams speaking entirely different professional languages, all working on the exact same project, but rarely ever talking to each other. It builds invisible walls and creates massive friction. And the end result? You usually get a disjointed compromise instead of a unified killer product. Moving on to part 2, let's meet the cast of characters, the 3 pillars of development. First up, industrial design. And we are talking about way more than just making things look pretty here. It's a highly creative activity that gives physical form to the product, ensuring structural and functional unity for the user. These are the folks obsessed with ergonomics, figuring out how you actually feel and interact with the object in the real world. Second, we have marketing. Think of marketing as the absolute critical bridge to the customer. They are out there decoding the market, pinpointing exactly what specific target segments actually need, and driving the pricing and communication strategy. Basically, they make sure the product is delivering real, tangible value to the business and the buyer. And finally, engineering. This is the absolute technical backbone of the whole shebang. They're the ones managing the mechanical realities, navigating the technological constraints, and figuring out how to actually translate a bright idea into a repeatable, manufactured reality. Which brings us to part 3, the danger of silos, and what happens when these disciplines clash. Historically, technology and marketing have run on completely parallel, disconnected tracks. You'd have research and development happening in one corner and marketing happening in a completely different building. This creates massive friction. You end up in a situation where engineering might build a technological marvel that nobody actually wants to buy, or marketing might promise the moon with features that engineering simply cannot build. A really common trap we see organizations fall into is believing that engineering alone should just take the lead. But when the sheer force of production dictates the entire pace of development, completely ignoring user needs and market realities, the human element gets completely flattened out. Innovation just hits a wall. So how do we actually fix this? Let's dive into part 4, the 7 integrated phases, also known as the synthesis. To solve this fragmentation, researchers synthesized inputs from all 3 of those fields into a single, cohesive timeline. Instead of a rigid relay race where isolated teams just pass a baton over a wall to the next group, this framework requires all 3 disciplines to be tightly braided together. It empowers an interdisciplinary group to stick together right from phase 1 all the way to phase 7. Let's break down the first half, from concept to design, to see how this overlap works in practice. In phase 1, marketing is analyzing the market while engineering is simultaneously assessing technical limits. By the time you hit phase 3, feasibility isn't just about whether engineering has the skills to build it. They are simultaneously testing the market viability too. It's a unified check-in at every single step of the way. Then, as we progress from verification right through to launch, these final 3 phases require literally all hands on deck. Prototyping, test marketing, error correction, it's a massive team effort. Take special note of phase 7, evaluation. It's not just handing off a sales report. Design checks the ergonomics, marketing looks at the sales response, and engineering analyzes the durability. The product is evaluated as a whole, by the whole team. Okay, part 5, from spoons to airplanes. Let's ground this theory in reality and talk about scaling the methodology. Now, you might be wondering, does this apply to everything? Well, think about the scale of what you're building. If you're designing a simple spoon, the faces are going to be a pretty easy, highly flexible loop. But if you're designing an airplane cabin, that process becomes incredibly complex. Strict adherence to these sequences is suddenly a matter of life, death, and millions of dollars. Yet, the core collaborative framework remains exactly the same. To really hammer home that no single discipline can successfully launch a product alone, researchers looked at something super simple, an adhesive. You'd think that's purely an engineering job, right? Nope. It needs a chemical engineer to perfect the formula, an industrial designer to create a functional, usable dispenser, and marketing to figure out the business plan and target the right demographic. You take away just one of those, and the whole product fails.
Remember that terrifying 30% failure rate we talked about at the very beginning? It is not an inevitability. It's just a symptom of a fractured process. By integrating design, marketing, and engineering from day one, you build a significantly smarter, more resilient organization. So I'll leave you with this final thought to consider for your organization's next big launch. Will your disciplines work in silos or in synergy?